The rain had been threatening all evening, dark clouds rolling in over London like a bruise spreading across the sky. I remember thinking I should just go home, call it a night, forget the whole thing. But Emma had been insistent, practically dragging me out of my flat with promises that I needed to live a little and stop hiding behind my laptop and deadlines. "You're 28 years old. Sarah," she'd said, hands on her hips in that way she had when she was about to deliver one of her life lectures. "When was the last time you actually went out? And no, the corner shop doesn't count." So there I was, standing outside the Rose and Crown, a pub I'd walked past 100 times but never entered. It looked warm inside, golden lights spilling out onto the wet pavement. The sound of laughter and conversation floating out every time someone opened the door. Emma had already gone in. Probably already at the bar ordering something with far too much gin in it. I took a deep breath, pulled my jacket tighter around myself, and followed. The pub was everything I usually avoided: crowded, loud, full of people who seemed to know exactly how to exist in spaces like this. I had always felt like an imposter in places like this, like everyone could tell I was forcing it. That I didn't quite belong. I found Emma at the bar, already chatting animatedly with the bartender. A woman with purple hair and more piercings than I could count. Emma thrust a glass into my hand without asking what I wanted. "Drink," she commanded. "You're wound tighter than my grandmother's knitting." I drank. Then I drank some more. Here's what they don't tell you about liquid courage: it doesn't actually make you brave. It just makes you care less about being afraid. And somewhere between the second and third drink, I stopped caring about a lot of things. I stopped caring that I didn't belong here. I stopped caring that I'd spent the last 5 years telling myself I was too busy for relationships. I stopped caring about the careful walls I built around myself, brick by brick, year after year, and that's when I saw her. She was sitting in a corner booth, alone, reading a book. An actual physical book in a pub on a Friday night. She had dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, and she was wearing this deep green sweater that somehow made her look both cozy and elegant at the same time. But what really caught my attention was the way she seemed completely content in her solitude. Like she created this little bubble of peace in the middle of the chaos. Earth to Sarah, Emma waved her hand in front of my face. "You're staring." "I'm not," I started, but Emma followed my gaze and her eyes went wide. "Oh my God. You're staring at a woman, so what? People look at people." "No, Sarah, you're staring like..." "Oh my God, is this finally happening? Are you finally admitting..." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, but my cheeks were burning and we both knew I was lying. The truth was, I'd known for a long time. Maybe forever. But knowing something and admitting it, those are two very different things. Knowing something is private, internal, safe. Admitting it makes it real. Admitting it means you can't take it back. Emma grabbed my shoulders, her eyes sparkling with what I recognized as a dangerous combination of alcohol and determination. "You should talk to her." "Absolutely not." "Why not?" Because I can't just..." "You're going to die alone surrounded by cats and unfinished freelance projects if you don't start taking some risks." "I like cats, Sarah." Emma's voice went soft, serious. "How long are you going to keep pretending? How long are you going to keep hiding?" The question hit harder than it should have. Maybe because I've been asking myself the same thing for years. I looked back at the woman in the corner. She'd just turned a page, a slight smile playing at her lips at whatever she was reading. She had the kind of face that made you want to know what she was thinking, what made her smile like that, what her voice sounded like. What would I even say? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Literally anything. Comment on her book. Ask if you can join her. Spill your drink on her. Actually, no, don't do that. But you'll think of something. Before I could talk myself out of it, Emma gave me a gentle push, and suddenly I was walking toward her table. My heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone in the pub could hear it. She looked up as I approached, and I got my first real look at her eyes. They were this incredible shade of amber, like whiskey held up to lamplight. And they were looking at me with polite curiosity. "Hi," I said, which was probably the least original opening line in the history of human interaction. But it was all my alcohol-soaked brain could manage. "Hello," she replied, and her voice was lower than I expected, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't quite place. "Scottish, maybe Irish? I noticed you were reading, and I gestured vaguely at the book, which was probably the smoothest thing I'd ever done. What is it? She held it up so I could see the cover. The Night Circus. Have you read it? I shook my head, even though I had read it twice actually. Because apparently my brain had decided that lying was the way to go. It's about a magical circus that appears without warning, she said, her eyes lighting up in a way that made my chest tight. And two young magicians who are bound to compete against each other in a game they don't fully understand. Sounds complicated. I managed. The best things usually are. She tilted her head slightly, studying me. Are you all right? You look a bit terrified? Yeah, that's probably accurate. The words were out before I could stop them, and I wanted to die right there. Just sink into the floor and disappear forever. But she laughed. Actually laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Well, points for honesty, she said. I'm Charlotte, by the way. Though most people call me Charlie. Sarah, most people call me Sarah. Another laugh. Would you like to sit down, Sarah, who people call Sarah? I sat before my legs could give out beneath me, looking back. I can't remember exactly how we went from awkward introductions to talking like we'd known each other for years. Maybe it was the alcohol lowering my usual defenses. Maybe it was the way Charlie had of actually listening when you spoke, like every word mattered. Or maybe it was just that we were meant to meet that night, meant to find each other in that crowded pub. So what do you do when you're not interrogating strangers about their reading material? Charlie asked, her eyes twinkling with amusement. I'm a writer, freelance, which is a fancy way of saying I work in my pajamas and survive on instant noodles and coffee. What do you write? Right now? A lot of boring corporate content. Website copy, blog posts about SEO optimization, articles about 10 ways to improve your productivity that I absolutely don't follow myself. I paused. But I want to write fiction. Real stories. I just haven't quite figured out how to make that work financially. What kind of stories? No one ever asked me that. People usually just nodded politely and changed the subject when I mentioned writing. But Charlie leaned forward, genuinely interested. And suddenly I found myself talking about the novel I'd been working on for 3 years, the one I was too afraid to show anyone. The one about a woman who discovers she can see people's memories when she touches them. That sounds incredible, Charlie said when I finally ran out of words. Why haven't you finished it? Fear, mostly. What if it's terrible? What if I spend all this time on it and it doesn't matter, it doesn't go anywhere? And what if it's brilliant? What if it changes someone's life? She took a sip of her wine. We can't let fear of failure stop us from trying. Otherwise, we might as well not be alive at all. That's very philosophical. I'm a philosophy professor, actually. At UCL, so it's literally my job to be philosophical. Of course you are, I said, and she raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're sitting in a pub reading literary fiction while everyone else is doing shots and shouting over football. You have this whole mysterious intellectual thing going on. Mysterious intellectual thing? She was trying not to smile. Is that your professional writer's description? Give me a break, I'm several drinks in. My vocabulary has abandoned me. We talked for hours. I learned that Charlie was originally from Edinburgh, that she'd moved to London 5 years ago for her position at the university, that she lived alone in a flat in Bloomsbury with a cat named Sartre, pretentious. I know, but he came with the name from the shelter. She told me about her research on existentialism and moral responsibility, and somehow made it sound fascinating rather than dry and academic. Told her things I rarely told anyone about my parents' disappointment when I dropped out of law school to pursue writing, about the loneliness of freelancing from home, about the way I sometimes felt like I was watching life happen to everyone else while I stayed safely on the sidelines. Why do you do that? Charlie asked. Do what? Stay on the sidelines. You're clearly smart, funny, talented. What are you so afraid of? I wanted to deflect, to make a joke, to change the subject. But something about the way she was looking at me made me want to be honest. Getting hurt. I guess. Failing. Being seen for who I really am and having people decide it's not enough. And who are you really? The question hung in the air between us. This was it. This was the moment I could keep hiding or I could take a leap. I'm still figuring that out, I said carefully. But I think I've known certain things about myself for a while. I just haven't been brave enough to say them out loud. Charlie reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. It was the first time we touched, and I felt it everywhere, like electricity running through my veins. You don't have to say anything you're not ready to say, she said softly. But for what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. It takes courage to even start figuring yourself out. I looked down at our hands, hers covering mine, and felt something shift in my chest. Can I ask you something? Anything. Are you? I couldn't get the words out. Am I gay? She said it so easily, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Yes, I am. Have been my whole life, or at least as long as I've been aware of such things. How did you know? She thought about it for a moment. I don't think there was one moment. It was more like putting together a puzzle. All these little pieces that didn't quite make sense until suddenly they did. The way I felt different from my friends growing up. The way I was never interested in boys the way they were. The way my heart would race when certain girls smiled at me. She squeezed my hand gently. The way it's racing right now. I looked up at her, and the expression on her face was so open, so vulnerable that it made me brave. I think I might be, I whispered. Gay, I think I might be gay. It was the first time I'd ever said it out loud. The first time I'd admitted it to anyone, including myself. Charlie's smile was radiant. Yeah, and I'm absolutely terrified. That's okay. Being terrified is part of it. But you know what else is part of it? What? The incredible relief of finally being honest with yourself. The joy of living authentically. The possibility of real connection with someone who actually sees you. She paused. The way you're looking at me right now, like I'm the only person in this entire pub. I haven't been able to look at anything else since I sat down. Good, she said, and her thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. Because I haven't been able to stop looking at you either. I don't know who moved first. Maybe we both did. But suddenly we were closer, leaning across the table. And when our lips met, it was like every romance novel cliché I'd ever rolled my eyes at suddenly made perfect sense. Fireworks. Butterflies. The world falling away until there was nothing but this moment. This kiss, this feeling of coming home to a place I'd never been. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathless. Wow, I said. Yeah, Charlie agreed. Wow, we stayed at that pub until they kicked us out at closing time, talking and laughing and stealing kisses when we thought no one was looking. Emma had long since gone home, sending me a text that just said yes with about 15 heart emojis. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining under the streetlights. Charlie called us a cab, and when she asked if I wanted to share it, I nodded without hesitation. My place or yours? She asked, and then quickly added, just to talk more. I'm not suggesting, unless you want a god, I'm usually better at this. Yours, I said, because I wasn't ready for this night to end. If that's okay, more than okay. I woke up on Charlie's couch with a blanket draped over me and the smell of coffee in the air. For a moment, I panicked, my mind racing through the previous night, trying to remember, but then it all came flooding back. And instead of panic, I felt this warm glow spreading through my chest. I'd kissed a woman. I'd admitted I was gay. I'd spent hours talking with someone who actually understood me, and I hadn't done anything to regret. We'd stayed up until nearly dawn, talking and kissing and talking some more. Until I'd started falling asleep mid-sentence, and Charlie had insisted I stay over, given me the couch. Brought me water and aspirin for the hangover she correctly predicted I'd have. Good morning. Charlie appeared in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She was wearing flannel pajama pants and an oversized university sweatshirt. Her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and she looked absolutely perfect. How's your head? Surprisingly okay, thanks to you. I sat up, accepting the coffee gratefully. Thank you. For everything. Last night was amazing? Terrifying? Life-changing? She sat down beside me, curling her legs under her. All of the above. For me too, she said softly. Sarah, I want you to know there's no pressure here. You're figuring things out, and that's okay. We can take this as slow as you need. What if I don't want to take it slow? She looked at me, surprise and hope mingling in her expression. No? I've been taking it slow my entire life, Charlie. Hiding, pretending, being afraid. And yes, this is new and terrifying, but it also feels more right than anything I've ever done. I set down my coffee and took her hand. I like you. A lot. And I want to see where this goes. I like you too, she said, smiling. A lot. We spent that whole Saturday together. Charlie made breakfast actual breakfast with eggs and toast and fresh fruit, not the cereal I usually ate standing over my sink. We took Sartre for a walk in the park, yes. She walked her cat on a leash, and yes, it was adorable. We went to a bookshop in Bloomsbury and spent hours browsing, recommending books to each other, arguing good-naturedly about literary merit versus entertainment value, and we talked. God, we talked about everything. Our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. I told her about my best friend from university who'd stopped speaking to me when I canceled plans one too many times, too anxious to leave my flat. She told me about coming out to her parents at 19 and the 2 years of silence that followed before they finally came around. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, she admitted as we sat in the bookshop cafe, sharing a truly enormous chocolate cake. But also the most important, because I realized that living a lie to make other people comfortable was killing me slowly. I'd rather be alone and honest than surrounded by people who only love a version of me that doesn't exist. Are you close with them now? Your parents? We're working on it. It's not perfect, but it's real. That's what matters. She reached across the table, wiping a smudge of chocolate from my chin. What about you? Have you thought about coming out to your family? I've thought about it. But they're very traditional, conservative. I'm already the disappointment who dropped out of law school. I'm not sure I can handle being the gay disappointment too. You're not a disappointment, Sarah. You're remarkable. You barely know me. I know enough. And I want to know more. All of it. Every part of you. Those first few weeks were a whirlwind. We saw each other almost every day, fitting our lives together like puzzle pieces we didn't know were missing. Charlie would come to my flat and work on her research while I wrote. Both of us in comfortable silence, broken only by the clicking of keyboards and the occasional reading aloud of a particularly good sentence. I started going to her lectures sometimes, sitting in the back of the hall, watching her command the room with her intelligence and passion. Afterward, she'd find me in the crowd, her eyes lighting up, and we'd go for coffee and she'd ask what I thought. Genuinely interested in my perspective, we explored London together, even though we both lived there for years. Somehow everything felt new when I was with her. We found tiny museums tucked away on side streets, ate at hole-in-the-wall restaurants that served food from countries I'd never visited, spent Sunday mornings at farmers markets picking out fresh produce we'd use to cook dinner together that night, and we kissed. God, we kissed. Every kiss felt like a revelation, like I was discovering a part of myself I kept locked away. Sometimes it was sweet and gentle, her lips soft against mine as we said goodbye at tube stations. Sometimes it was passionate and desperate, pressed against her front door because we couldn't wait the extra 30 seconds it would take to get inside. I'd never felt this way about anyone. Not the boys I dated in university, trying to convince myself that the lack of spark was normal, that love was supposed to be comfortable and safe rather than this wild, consuming thing. Not the one girlfriend I'd had before, a drunken experimental few weeks that I convinced myself didn't count, didn't mean anything about who I was, but this was different. This was real. It was about a month into our relationship when I decided to tell Emma. We met for brunch at our usual spot, and I was so nervous I could barely eat my pancakes. Okay, what's going on? Emma asked, setting down her fork. You've been weird all morning. Weirder than usual anyway. I need to tell you something. Oh God, are you dying? Please don't be dying. What? No. Emma, stop catastrophizing. Then what? You're freaking me out. I took a deep breath. I'm dating someone, Charlie, the woman from the pub. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks now. Emma's face went through about 17 different expressions before landing on pure joy. Finally, oh my God, I thought you were going to make me pretend I didn't know. I've been stalking her Instagram for weeks. She's gorgeous and she's a professor? Sarah, you really went for it. Wait, you knew? Of course I knew. I saw the way you looked at her that night. And you've been different lately, happier, less anxious. Plus, you've been wearing actual nice clothes instead of the same hoodie 3 days in a row. I laughed, feeling the tension drain out of me. So you're okay with it? Okay with it? Sarah, I've been waiting for you to admit you were gay since we were 22 and you cried during that Sarah Waters novel. That was a very sad book. You cried because the women got their happy ending. That was a very sad book. You cried because the women got their happy ending. You were happy crying. It was very telling. She grabbed my hands across the table. I'm so proud of you. I know this is scary, but you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be yourself. Telling Emma had been easy. My parents would be harder. I put it off for another few weeks, making excuses every time Charlie gently suggested it might be time. But the longer I waited, the more the secret sat between us. This unnamed thing that was starting to feel like a barrier. Finally, Charlie sat me down one evening at her place. Sarah, we need to talk. My heart dropped. Those 4 words that never mean anything good. I can't do this anymore, she continued, and I felt my world starting to crumble. I can't be your secret. I understand that coming out is hard, God. I understand that better than almost anyone. But you won't introduce me to your friends as your girlfriend. You changed the subject when I mentioned meeting your family. Last week, you literally crossed the street to avoid running into your neighbor when we were together. Charlie, I'm not asking you to take out a billboard announcing your sexuality. But I need to know that you're not ashamed of us. Of me. I'm not ashamed of you. The words burst out of me. God, Charlie, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm just ashamed of yourself then? Of being gay? And that was it, wasn't it? The truth I'd been avoiding. Yes, I whispered. I think maybe I am. A little, or not ashamed exactly, but I spent so many years telling myself I was straight, building this version of myself that would be acceptable to my family, to society. And now I'm unraveling all of that, and it's terrifying. Charlie's expression softened. She moved closer, taking my hands. I know it's scary. But Sarah, you're so much braver than you think you are. You've already done the hardest part. You've admitted the truth to yourself. Everything else is just logistics. Just logistics? My parents might disown me. They might. Or they might surprise you. But either way, you'll survive it. And you'll be living authentically, which is worth more than their approval. Easy for you to say. Your parents came around. After 2 years. 2 years of no contact, Sarah. 2 years of wondering if I'd made the right choice, if I should have just kept pretending. And you know what? It was still worth it. Every difficult moment was worth it because I was finally being true to myself. I knew she was right. I'd known all along. But knowing and doing are different things entirely. I'll tell them, I said finally. This weekend. I'm supposed to have dinner with them on Sunday. I'll tell them then. Do you want me to come with you? I thought about it. Part of me desperately wanted her there, wanted her support. But another part knew this was something I needed to do alone. No, but maybe you could come over after? However it goes. Of course. I'll be there. She pulled me into her arms, and I let myself sink into her embrace. It's going to be okay, Sarah. One way or another, it's going to be okay. Sunday dinner at my parents' house had always been a ritual. Roast chicken, roasted vegetables, the same blue china plates they'd been using since before I was born. My mother would ask about my work. My father would half listen while doing the crossword, and I would give vague, pleasant answers that revealed nothing real about my life, but this Sunday was different. I'd barely touched my food, my stomach in knots. My mother had noticed, kept asking if I was feeling well, if the chicken was all right. It's perfect, Mom. I need to tell you both something. My father looked up from his crossword. My mother's hand stilled on her fork. I'm seeing someone I started. It's serious. We've been together for about 2 months now. My mother's face lit up. Oh, Sarah. That's wonderful. What's his name? What does he do? When can we meet him? Her name is Charlie, I said quietly. Charlotte. She's a philosophy professor at UCL. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's smile froze on her face. My father's crossword pen stopped moving. Her? My father said finally. Yes, Charlie is a woman. I'm gay, Dad, I'm gay, and I'm dating a woman, and I'm happy for the first time in years. My mother stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is a joke. Some kind of phase. You've dated men before, and I was miserable. I was pretending, trying to be what you wanted me to be. What we wanted. My father's voice was rising. We wanted you to be normal. To have a normal life. I am normal. Being gay is normal. Don't be ridiculous, Sarah, you're confused. This is what happens when you spend too much time alone, making up stories in that head of yours instead of living in the real world. Every word was a knife. I'd prepared myself for this, thought I was ready, but nothing could have prepared me for how much it hurt to have my own parents look at me with disgust. I'm not confused. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. My mother was crying now. What did we do wrong? Where did we fail you? You didn't fail me. This isn't about you. This is who I am. This is who I've always been. You need to see someone, my father said firmly. A therapist. A priest. Someone who can help you through this. I don't need help. I need you to accept me. To love me for who I actually am, not who you want me to be. I can't, my mother sobbed. I can't accept this. I won't, not my daughter. Then I guess you don't have a daughter anymore. The words hung in the air and I saw the moment they registered on her face. But she didn't take them back. Didn't say she didn't mean it. If you continue down this path, my father said coldly, don't bother coming back here. We won't have this lifestyle, in our home. I stood up, my legs shaking. Fine, I won't. I walked out of the house and I didn't look back. I made it to my car before I started crying, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I couldn't drive like this, so I just sat there in their driveway falling apart. Finally, I pulled out my phone and called Charlie. She answered on the first ring. How did it go? Can you come get me? I don't think I can drive. I'm already on my way. Send me your location. She showed up 20 minutes later, pulled me out of my car and into her arms, and let me cry into her shoulder until I had no tears left. I'm so sorry, she murmured into my hair. I'm so sorry. You were right, I said when I could finally speak. It hurts. God, it hurts so much. But I don't regret it. I don't regret choosing myself. Choosing us. She pulled back to look at me, cupping my face in her hands. I love you, Sarah. I know it's too soon, and I know this is terrible timing, but I love you and I need you to know that. I love you too, I said, and I realized it was true. I'd probably loved her from that first night in the pub when she'd looked at me like I was someone worth knowing. I love you so much. We stood there in my parents' driveway, holding each other as the sun set, and I felt something shift. Yes, I'd lost my parents. Yes, it hurt more than anything I'd ever experienced. But I gained myself. And I'd gained Charlie, and somehow that felt like more than enough. The weeks after that awful dinner were hard. I'd call my parents' number sometimes late at night just to hear my mother's voice on the voicemail. I'd drive past their house, hoping maybe they'd changed their minds. But they'd call and say they were sorry, they loved me anyway. They never did, but Charlie was there through all of it. She'd hold me when I cried, distract me when I spiraled into anxiety, remind me that my parents' rejection said nothing about my worth as a person. You're incredible, she'd tell me. You're brave and talented and kind. And the fact that they can't see that is their loss, not yours. Emma helped too. She'd show up with wine and takeout, make me laugh until I forgot to be sad, listen to me process the same feelings over and over again without complaint. They'll come around, she'd say. And if they don't, screw them. You have us. You have people who love you for exactly who you are. Slowly, painfully, I started to believe her. I threw myself into my work. And something strange happened. My writing got better. That novel I'd been working on for 3 years? I finished it in 6 months. Turns out, when you stop using all your energy hiding who you are, you have a lot more left over for creating. Charlie read every chapter as I finished it, giving me feedback that was thoughtful and honest and always encouraging. When I finally typed the end, she insisted we celebrate properly. She took me to this tiny Italian restaurant in Covent Garden, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. Over carbonara and too much Chianti, she raised her glass. To Sarah Mitchell, novelist. May this be the first of many. I haven't even tried to get it published yet. You will. And it'll be brilliant. I have absolute faith in you. How can you be so sure? Because I know you. I know how hard you work, how much heart you put into everything you do. And I know that book is special because you are special. I wanted to kiss her right there in the middle of the restaurant, and so I did. I didn't care who was watching, didn't care what they thought. For the first time in my life, I was proud of who I was. Proud to be in love with this incredible woman. When we got back to my flat, which was slowly becoming our flat, given how much time Charlie spent there, I showed her something I'd been working on. I wrote something else too, I said, pulling up a document on my laptop. An essay. About coming out, about losing my family but finding myself. I thought maybe I could try to get it published. Maybe it would help someone else going through the same thing. Charlie read it in silence, tears streaming down her face by the end. This is beautiful, Sarah. This is so important. You have to submit this. I'm scared. I know. But you did the scary thing when you came out to your parents. Everything else is just slightly less scary from here. She was right. I submitted the essay to an LGBT magazine, expecting nothing. But they published it. And then something amazing happened. People rate it. People commented, shared their own stories, told me that my words had helped them feel less alone. One comment in particular stood out. It was from a woman around my age who'd been struggling with her sexuality for years, too afraid to admit the truth even to herself. Reading your essay gave me the courage to finally be honest, she wrote. I'm coming out to my wife tomorrow. We've been married for 5 years, and I've been miserable the whole time, trying to force myself to be someone I'm not. Your story reminded me that it's never too late to choose authenticity. Thank you. I showed it to Charlie, my hands shaking. You did that, she said softly. Your words, your bravery, you helped her. Do you understand how incredible that is? And I did. For the first time, I understood that my story mattered. That living authentically wasn't just about me, it was about giving. Permission to others to do the same. It was Charlie's idea to have a party for my 30th birthday. I'd always hated birthday parties, always found some excuse to skip the fuss. But she insisted. You've spent too many years hiding, Sarah. It's time to celebrate. To be seen. To be surrounded by people who love you. She rented out a private room at a queer bar in Soho. Invited all our friends, the ones I'd made through her. And the old friends like Emma who'd stuck by me through everything. She even found my old university roommate, the one I'd lost touch with, and convinced her to come when I walked into that room and saw it full of people who knew me. Really knew me, who celebrated every part of me, including the parts I'd tried to hide for so long. I broke down crying. Happy tears? Charlie asked, wrapping her arms around me. The happiest, I confirmed. The night was perfect. We danced to music that was too loud, drank cocktails that were too strong, laughed until our sides hurt. At one point, Emma made a toast. To Sarah, she said, raising her glass, who finally figured out what the rest of us knew all along, that she's magnificent exactly as she is. And to Charlie for having the patience to wait while Sarah caught up to herself. Everyone cheered, and I felt this overwhelming sense of belonging. This was my community. These were my people. Later, when things had quieted down and people were starting to leave, Charlie pulled me aside. I have something for you, she said, handing me a small wrapped box. Inside was a key. It's to my flat, she explained. I know you already have one, but this is. I want it to be official. Move in with me, properly. Let's build a life together. Charlie, you don't have to answer now. Think about it. But Sarah, I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every night. I want us to pick out furniture together and argue about whether Sartre needs a diet and build a life that's completely, authentically ours. Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes, I want that too. She kissed me then. And I felt like everything, all the pain, all the fear, all the difficult moments had led me here. To this perfect moment with this perfect woman. Moving in together was an adjustment. I'd lived alone for so long, gotten used to my own rhythms and routines. Suddenly I was navigating shared spaces. Compromising on decorating decisions, Charlie had very strong opinions about throw pillows. Learning to coexist with another person's habits and quirks thought it was also the best decision I'd ever made. I loved waking up next to her. Her hair a mess and her face soft with sleep. I loved making coffee together in the morning, our carefully choreographed dance around the kitchen. I loved coming home from a long day of writing to find her grading papers on the couch, Sartre curled up beside her, and knowing this was home, we fell into patterns, created rituals. Sunday morning farmers market runs. Wednesday night cooking experiments, some more successful than others. Friday evening wine and movie nights. Saturday afternoon writing sessions at our favorite cafe, sitting across from each other, occasionally looking up to share a smile or a particularly good sentence. And through it all, I wrote. The novel was out on submission to agents, and while the rejection stung, each one felt like progress. I was putting myself out there, risking failure. And somehow that felt more alive than playing it safe ever had. I'd also started writing more personal essays, sharing my experiences as a late-blooming lesbian, as someone navigating the loss of family and the discovery of chosen family. The response was overwhelming. I'd get emails from readers thanking me, sharing their own stories, asking for advice. You're becoming a voice in the community, Charlie said one evening as I read through my messages. People look up to you. That's terrifying. It's also beautiful. You're doing exactly what you wanted, telling stories that matter, that help people. You're making a difference. She was right. And the more I wrote, the more I understood that my coming out story wasn't just about me, it was part of a larger narrative. One that countless people were living through. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, I got the call that changed everything. An agent wanted to represent me. More than that, she loved the novel, thought it was special, believed she could sell it to publishers. There's real magic in this book, she told me over the phone. The way you write about connection, about seeing and being seen, it's profound. I think this could be really big. I called Charlie immediately, interrupting her lecture, something I'd never done before but seemed warranted given the circumstances. It's happening, I sobbed into the phone. Someone believes in the book. Someone wants to help me share it with the world. I told you, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I always knew. Come to my office. We're celebrating properly. She took me to the same pub where we'd met over a year ago now. We sat at the same table in the corner, and I marveled at how much had changed. How much I had changed. Do you remember that night? Charlie asked, as if reading my mind. How could I forget? You were reading The Night Circus. I lied and said I hadn't read it. I knew you were lying. But I thought it was charming how nervous you were. I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing, walking up to you like that. And yet you did it anyway. That was the moment I knew you were special. She reached across the table, taking my hand. You were so brave, Sarah, even when you didn't think you were. I wasn't brave. I was drunk. You were brave. Drunk, yes, but brave. You took a risk. You let yourself be seen. And look where it led us. I looked around the pub, at the people laughing and talking, at the life happening all around us. A year ago, I'd been so afraid of all of this. Afraid of being myself, afraid of loving Charlie, afraid of what people would think. Now I couldn't imagine living any other way. It took another 6 months, but the agent sold my novel. A real publisher, a real deal, a real book that would sit on shelves in actual bookstores. I kept having to pinch myself to make sure it was real. The day I held the finished book in my hands for the first time, I cried. Charlie took a photo of me sitting on our couch, the book clutched to my chest, tears streaming down my face, the biggest smile you've ever seen. This is your author photo, she declared. Raw, real emotion. This is what success looks like. The book launch party was at a queer bookstore in Hackney. Charlie had helped me plan everything, had been my rock through the entire publishing process, the edits, the publicity photos, the anxiety that maybe no one would care. Maybe no one would come. The room was packed. Emma was there, of course, already chatting up the cute bookseller. My university roommate came, bringing a group of friends who'd all read the book and wanted it signed. Other writers I'd met through queer literary events, readers who'd followed my essays online. Students from Charlie's classes who wanted to support their professor's girlfriend. And then, just as I was about to start my reading, I saw them dot my parents. They were standing at the back of the room, looking uncomfortable and out of place, but they were there. I almost couldn't breathe. Charlie squeezed my hand. "Do you want me to?" "No," I said. "It's okay." "I'm okay." I read from the book the chapter about a woman finding the courage to tell her truth, about the fear and freedom that comes with authenticity. And I read it while looking at my parents, letting them hear the story I needed to tell. Afterward, during the signing, they approached. My mother looked like she'd been crying. "Sarah," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" We stepped outside, away from the crowd. Charlie offered to come with me, but I shook my head. This was something I needed to do alone. "We read your book," my father said. "All of it. Your publisher sent us a copy," my mother added. "We almost didn't read it." But I couldn't help myself. "You're my daughter, and—" "We were wrong," my father interrupted. "About everything. About how we reacted, about what we said. About not accepting who you are." I couldn't speak. After a year and a half of silence, this was the last thing I'd expected. "Reading your book." My mother continued, wiping her eyes, "Understanding what you went through. How much pain we caused you, Sarah. I'm so sorry. We were afraid, and we let that fear hurt you. But seeing you tonight, seeing how happy you are, seeing the life you've built, you're remarkable," my father said, and his voice cracked. "You always have been. And we were fools not to see it." "I don't expect you to forgive us," my mother said. "I'm not sure I can forgive myself. But I needed you to know that we love you. We're proud of you. And we want to be part of your life again if you'll have us." I looked at them, really looked at them. They looked older than I remembered, worn down by the past year and a half. And I realized that this had been hard for them too. Not as hard as it had been for me, but hard nonetheless. "It's going to take time," I said finally. "I can't just forget the last year and a half. I can't forget how much you hurt me." "We understand," my father said. "But I'm willing to try, slowly, if you're willing to really get to know me, the real me. And that includes Charlie. She's not going anywhere. We'd like to meet her," my mother said. "Properly, if she's willing to give us a chance." Charlie, who'd been hovering near the door trying to give us privacy while also being close enough if I needed her, stepped forward. "I'm willing," she said, extending her hand. "For Sarah's sake. We didn't fix everything that night. Healing doesn't work that way. But it was a start. 3 months before the wedding, everything fell apart. It started with something small, a disagreement about the guest list. Charlie wanted to invite her ex-girlfriend, Maya, who she'd remained close friends with after their breakup 5 years ago. I said fine, even though something about it made my stomach twist. "You're sure?" Charlie asked, studying my face. "Because if you're not comfortable, I'm fine," I lied. "It's your day too. Invite whoever you want." But I wasn't fine. And instead of talking about it like a rational adult, I let it fester. I started noticing things I never noticed before, how Charlie's phone would light up with messages from Maya. How she'd smile at certain texts, how she'd sometimes take calls in the other room. My anxiety, which I thought I had under control, came roaring back. I started working later, avoiding coming home. I'd tell Charlie I was on a deadline, that the book was taking longer than expected. But really, I was just sitting in coffee shops, spiraling into worst-case scenarios. What if Charlie realized she'd made a mistake? What if she was still in love with Maya? What if I wasn't enough? The night it all came crashing down was a Thursday. Charlie had made dinner my favorite, mushroom risotto, and she'd lit candles. Poured wine, clearly trying to create a romantic evening. But I couldn't enjoy it. I just kept thinking about Maya, about all the ways I didn't measure up. "Okay, that's it," Charlie said finally, setting down her fork. "What's going on?" "You've been distant for weeks. If you're having second thoughts about the wedding, are you sleeping with Maya?" The words came out before I could stop them. Sharp, accusatory, completely unfounded. Charlie's face went through shock, hurt, and then anger. "What? Sarah, what are you talking about? You're always texting her, taking calls from her. You want her at our wedding. Maybe you're realizing you made a mistake, that you should have stayed with her. Stop. Just stop." Charlie stood up, her hands shaking. "I cannot believe you just said that to me." After everything we've been through, after 3 years together, you really think I would cheat on you? I don't know what to think. You're always talking to her because she's going through a divorce. She's struggling and I'm trying to be a good friend. That's what adults do, Sarah. They maintain friendships even after romantic relationships end. Well, maybe I'm not as evolved as you are. Clearly not, if you think so little of me that you'd accuse me of cheating. We stood there, staring at each other across the table, and I saw tears streaming down Charlie's face. And I realized what I'd done. How badly I'd hurt her. Charlie, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Didn't you? Because it sounded pretty clear to me. She grabbed her coat from the back of the chair. I need some space. I'm going to Emma's. Charlie, please. No, Sarah, you don't get to do this. You don't get to let your insecurities poison what we have. I have never given you a reason not to trust me, never. And if you can't see that, if you're going to sabotage this relationship because you're afraid of being happy, then maybe we do need to reconsider this wedding. She left. Actually left. And I stood there in our flat, surrounded by the romantic dinner she prepared, and realized I might have just destroyed the best thing in my life. I didn't sleep that night. I called Emma at 2 a.m., desperate and panicking. She left. Emma, she actually left. What do I do? First, you calm down, Emma said, her voice groggy but kind. Second, you figure out why you're really freaking out. Because this isn't about Maya, is it? I don't know, maybe what if she realizes she can do better than me? Sarah, listen to me. Charlie loves you. She spent 3 years proving that to you over and over again. But you have to let her. You have to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't know how. Then figure it out. Go to therapy. Talk to someone. Because Charlie's right, you are sabotaging this. And if you're not careful, you're going to lose her for real. The next morning, I called a therapist. Dr. Morrison specialized in LGBTQ+ issues and anxiety disorders. And she had an opening that afternoon due to a cancellation. It felt like fate. Tell me what brought you here today, she said, after I'd settled into the chair in her office, clutching a cup of tea she'd offered me, and I told her everything. About coming out late, about losing my parents for 1.5 years, about the constant fear that I didn't deserve happiness, that it would all be taken away. I keep waiting for Charlie to leave, I admitted. Because everyone else has, you know? My parents, old friends who couldn't handle me being gay. So I'm just waiting for her to realize I'm not worth it. And by waiting for it, by expecting it, you're actually creating the conditions that might make it happen, Dr. Morrison said gently. You're pushing her away before she can leave you. It's a defense mechanism, but it's not a healthy one. So what do? You start by recognizing that Charlie isn't your parents. She's not your old friends. She's shown you consistently who she is, someone who loves you, who chose you, who wants to build a life with you. You need to start trusting that. What if I can't? Then you practice. Trust is a skill, Sarah. It's something you build, not something you either have or don't have. And yes, it's scary. Yes, there's always a chance you could get hurt. But the alternative, pushing away everyone who tries to love you, that's a guarantee of hurt. I left that session feeling raw but hopeful. And I texted Charlie, I'm sorry. You were right about everything. Can we talk? I understand if you're not ready. She didn't respond for hours. When she finally did, it was just tomorrow. 2 p.m., the coffee shop on the corner. I got to the coffee shop 30 minutes early, too anxious to wait at home. When Charlie arrived, she looked tired, like she hadn't slept either. She ordered a coffee and sat down across from me, her posture guarded. I saw a therapist yesterday, I started. After you left. And she helped me understand some things about myself. About why I'm so afraid all the time. Charlie didn't say anything. Just waited for me to continue. When my parents rejected me, something broke inside me. Not just my heart, but my ability to trust that people would stay. And I've been carrying that fear ever since, waiting for you to realize you made a mistake with me. I took a shaky breath. But that's not fair to you. You've never been anything but loving and patient and kind. And I repaid that by accusing you of the one thing that would hurt most. It did hurt, Charlie said quietly. It hurt that after 3 years, you still don't trust me. That you think I'd do something like that. I know. And I'm so, so sorry. I don't think that, not really. I was scared. Maya is beautiful and successful, and you have this history with her. And I let my anxiety tell me stories that weren't true. Maya is going through a divorce from someone who cheated on her, Charlie said. She's devastated. She reached out because she knew I'd understand what she's going through, having been through my own difficult breakup before I met you. That's all it was, Sarah. Friendship. Support. I know. I should have just asked instead of assuming the worst. Charlie was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee. I need you to understand something. I can be patient. I can support you while you work through your anxiety and your trust issues. But I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly having to prove myself, where you're always waiting for me to fail you. That's exhausting. And it's not sustainable. I know. That's why I'm going to therapy. Real, consistent therapy. Not just one session, but ongoing work to deal with my issues. I reached across the table, but stopped short of touching her hand. I love you, Charlie. I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. But I understand that I need to work on myself first. And if you need more time, if you need me to prove that I'm serious about this, I don't need you to prove anything, she interrupted. I need you to be honest with me. When you're scared, when you're spiraling, when your brain is telling you stories, I need you to come to me instead of pulling away. Can you do that? I can try. I want to try. Charlie finally reached out and took my hand. I love you too, Sarah, even when you're being an idiot. Even when you're self-sabotaging. But we have to be a team. We have to communicate. This only works if we're both all in. I'm all in, I said. I promise. I'm all in. The next few months were hard work. I saw Dr. Morrison twice a week, digging into the root causes of my anxiety, learning coping mechanisms, practicing trust and vulnerability. It wasn't linear. Some days were better than others, but I was committed. Charlie was incredibly supportive, but she also held me accountable. When I started to spiral, she'd gently remind me to use my tools to talk to her instead of disappearing into my head. When I catastrophized, she'd help me reality check my thoughts. Is there actual evidence that I'm going to leave you? She'd ask. Or is that your anxiety talking? And slowly, painfully, I started to believe that she was going to stay. That I deserved this love. That I didn't have to keep waiting for disaster. Wedding planning became less stressful and more exciting. I met Maya at a dinner Charlie organized, and she was lovely, warm, and funny, and clearly just a friend. She told me stories about Charlie in university, about her terrible fashion sense and her tendency to get too competitive at board games. I'm glad she found you, Maya said at the end of the night, pulling me aside. I've never seen her this happy. You're good for her. She's good for me too, I said. She saved my life in a lot of ways. Then take care of her. And let her take care of you. That's what love is, you know? Not grand gestures, but showing up every day and choosing each other. My parents were actually helpful with wedding planning too, which was strange and wonderful. My mother had opinions about flowers and invitations. My father surprisingly knew a lot about wine pairings. It wasn't perfect. They still sometimes said the wrong thing, still struggled with certain aspects of queer culture, but they were trying. That counted for something. Emma, of course, was a wedding planning tornado. She had spreadsheets. Multiple spreadsheets. Color-coded spreadsheets. You're terrifying, I told her as she showed me her timeline for the day. You'll thank me when everything runs smoothly, she said. Now, have you written your vows? I had. I'd been working on them for weeks, trying to capture everything I felt, everything Charlie meant to me. They were too long, probably too sappy, definitely going to make me cry when I read them. But they were honest. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in Emma's guest room. Tradition dictated that Charlie and I spend the night before apart, even though we both complained about it. I was surprisingly calm. No anxiety, no spiraling, just this quiet excitement. Emma brought me coffee in bed, sat beside me on the mattress. How are you feeling? She asked. Happy, I said, and realized it was true. Really, genuinely happy. Good, because you deserve this. Sarah, you deserve all of this. Getting ready was a blur of makeup and hair and slipping into my dress, a simple, elegant thing in ivory with lace sleeves. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the confident woman staring back at me. But I liked her. The ceremony was in a botanical garden in Richmond, small and intimate, just like we'd wanted. As I walked down the aisle, my father on one side, my mother on the other. Both of them crying, I saw Charlie waiting for me. And my breath caught. She was wearing a navy suit with a burgundy tie. Her hair styled perfectly, and she was looking at me like I was the only person in the world. Like I was everything. When I reached her, she took my hands, and I could feel them trembling slightly. "You look incredible," she whispered. "So do you?" The ceremony itself was perfect. Our friend James, who'd gotten ordained online specifically for this, kept it short and sweet. We read our vows through tears. Promise to love each other through everything life threw at us, to communicate honestly, to choose each other every day. "I promise to call you out when you're spiraling," I said, reading from the paper I'd written and rewritten a dozen times, "and to let you call me out when I'm being unfair to myself. I promise to trust you, even when it's scary. I promise to be honest with you, even when it's hard. And I promise to love you with everything I am for as long as I live." Charlie's vows were shorter but no less meaningful. "I promise to be patient with your process, but never to let you settle for less than you deserve. I promise to love all of you, the brilliant writer, the anxious overthinker, the woman who's still figuring herself out. And I promise that when you forget how incredible you are, I'll remind you. Every single day." When James pronounced us married and told us we could kiss, Charlie pulled me close and kissed me like it was the first time and the last time all at once. The crowd erupted in cheers, and I heard Emma's distinctive whistle above everything else. We walked back down the aisle hand in hand, wives, partners, a team. And I felt lighter than I'd felt in years. The reception was in a garden tent strung with fairy lights, tables laden with food and wine, and the massive cake Emma had insisted we needed. She was right, as always. We had our first dance to "I Found" by Amber Run, swaying together while everyone watched. "Happy?" Charlie murmured against my ear. "Beyond happy." I didn't know I could feel this much all at once. Get used to it. We have a whole lifetime of this ahead of us. The speeches were wonderful and embarrassing in equal measure. Emma told stories about my closeted days that made everyone laugh and made me want to hide. Charlie's best friend Tom talked about the first time Charlie had mentioned me, how her entire face had lit up. How he'd known immediately that I was different from anyone she dated before, but it was my father's speech that surprised me most. He stood up, looking uncomfortable in his suit, and cleared his throat several times before speaking. "I'm not good at this sort of thing," he started. "Public speaking, emotions, any of it. But I need to say something." He looked at me, his eyes wet. "Sarah, when you came out to us, we failed you. We let our fear and prejudice hurt the person we love most in the world. And I will regret that for the rest of my life." The room had gone completely silent. "But watching you over the past few years," he continued, "seeing the person you've become when you're finally free to be yourself, it's been the greatest privilege of my life. You're braver than I ever was. You're more honest, more authentic, more willing to fight for what matters. And Charlie, thank you for loving our daughter, for being patient with us, for showing us what real love looks like." He raised his glass. "To Sarah and Charlie, may you have the courage to always be yourselves and the love to support each other through everything." I was crying. Everyone was crying. Charlie squeezed my hand under the table. Later, during the open dancing portion, Maya approached me. "Can we talk for a minute?" she asked. We stepped outside the tent into the cool evening air. "I wanted to apologize," she said, "for the stress I caused in your relationship." Charlie explained what happened, about your fight. "I should have been more mindful about texting so much, about how it might look." "No, that's not, you didn't do anything wrong. That was all my insecurity, my issues. I'm sorry I let it become a thing. Still, I'm glad we got to meet properly to clear the air. And I'm glad Charlie has you. You two are really good together." "Thank you. That means a lot." We hugged, and when we went back inside, I felt like another weight had lifted. No more jealousy, no more fear. Just acceptance and trust. We honeymooned in Scotland. Partly because Charlie wanted to show me where she grew up. Partly because we both wanted somewhere quiet and beautiful, where we could just be together. We stayed in a cottage in the Highlands. with views of mountains and lochs that looked like something from a fantasy novel. We hiked during the day, cooked simple meals together at night, made love in front of the fireplace while rain pattered on the windows. It was perfect. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange, Charlie asked me something she'd never asked before. Do you ever regret how long it took? Coming out, I mean. Finding yourself? I thought about it. Sometimes, I think about all the years I wasted pretending, trying to be someone I wasn't. All the opportunities for connection I missed because I was too afraid. But I also think that journey made me who I am. The struggle, the pain, the eventual triumph of choosing myself, it all shaped me. And it led me here to this life. So no, I don't regret it. Not really. I'm glad you feel that way. Because I've been thinking. She paused, nervous in a way I rarely saw. What if we wrote about it? Together. Your journey, our story. A memoir, maybe, or creative nonfiction. Something that could help other late bloomers, other people still figuring themselves out. You want to write a book? Together? I know I'm an academic, not a creative writer. But I think my perspective, someone who came out young, who's always been secure in her identity, combined with yours. Someone who struggled with it, who came out later, it could be powerful. We could reach people who need to hear both stories. I loved the idea immediately. When would we start? Whenever you want. We have time. But I was already thinking about structure, about narrative arc, about how to tell our story in a way that honored both the pain and the joy. Let's start tomorrow, I said. I don't want to wait. And so we did. Every morning of our honeymoon, we'd spend a few hours writing together, trading stories, laughing at memories, crying at the hard parts. By the time we returned to London, we had a rough outline and several chapters drafted. It would take us another year to finish, but that was okay. We had time. We had each other, the book we wrote together, Late Blooming, 2 stories of coming out, coming together, and coming home to ourselves, was published to surprising acclaim. It resonated with people, especially late bloomers like me who'd spent years hiding. Years trying to be someone they weren't. We did readings together. Charlie and I, trading off sections, telling our story from both perspectives. And every event, without fail, someone would come up to us afterward with tears in their eyes, saying, "Thank you. I needed to hear this." My fiction career continued to flourish too. I publish 3 novels now, each one more successful than the last. But it was the joint memoir that I was most proud of because it had helped people. Because it had made a difference. Charlie got tenure at UCL, became head of her department. She was brilliant and respected, but she never brought work stress home. We had boundaries now, healthy ones. Ways of protecting our relationship while still pursuing our individual passions. We'd moved to a bigger flat in Primrose Hill, with room for both our offices and a guest room for when people visited. We'd adopted a second cat, a ginger tabby named Simone. Yes, after Simone de Beauvoir, we were nothing if not consistent. Life was good. My relationship with my parents had deepened too. They came to London regularly, took us out to dinner, asked about our work. My mother had even joined a PFLAG group, was now helping other parents of LGBTQ kids navigate their own acceptance journeys. I want to make up for lost time, she told me. I want to help other parents not make the same mistakes we did. Emma had gotten married too, to the cute bookseller from my launch party. We were all intertwined now, this chosen family we'd built, supporting each other through everything, but the best part, the absolute best part of my life, was still coming home to Charlie every evening. Still falling asleep next to her every night and waking up beside her every morning. Still having someone who knew all of me, the anxious parts, the creative parts, the parts that were still healing and loved me anyway. On the 5-year anniversary of the night we met, Charlie surprised me by taking me back to that pub. The Rose and Crown looked exactly the same, still warm and welcoming, still full of laughter and conversation. We sat at our table in the corner, and Charlie ordered us both wine. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night?" she asked. "Hi?" I think I was very articulate. She laughed. After that, when I asked if you were okay and you said terrified. Oh God, yes. I was so nervous I thought I might pass out. I loved that. Your honesty, your vulnerability. I knew right then that you were someone special. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Which is why I wanted to do this here, where it all started. Charlie, what? Open it? Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, with a small diamond that caught the light. We're already married, I said, confused. I know. But I never properly proposed. You never got that moment, that romance. And I wanted to give it to you now, 5 years later, when we're even more sure of each other than we were then. She took the ring out of the box and held it up. Sarah Mitchell Callahan, will you continue to be my wife? Will you keep choosing me every day in the good times and the hard times, through anxiety spirals and book deadlines and whatever else life throws at us? I was crying, of course. Yes, always yes. She slipped the ring onto my finger and I stared at it through my tears. It was perfect. I have something for you too, I said, pulling an envelope from my bag. It's not a ring, but what is it? The dedication page for my next novel. I wanted you to see it first. She opened the envelope and read aloud, for Charlie, who taught me that the bravest thing we can do is let ourselves be loved. And for everyone still finding the courage to be themselves, keep going. You're worth it. When she looked up, she was crying too. Sarah, this is beautiful. You're beautiful. And I love you. I'll love you for the rest of my life. We kissed there in that pub, surrounded by strangers who were living their own stories, making their own memories. And I thought about that terrified woman who'd approached a beautiful stranger 5 years ago. Fueled by alcohol and desperation and a tiny seed of courage, I thought about how that single moment of bravery had led to everything good in my life, and I made a silent promise to her. To that past version of myself, I'll keep being brave. I'll keep choosing love over fear. I'll keep showing up honestly and authentically, no matter how scary it gets, because this Charlie, our life together, the family we built, the work we'd created, the love we'd found, this was worth every moment of fear. This was worth everything.